The best way to predict the future is to invent it. That's what we're doing at FRL. Today's postcard will share some of the recent progress we've made on inventing the future in optics, machine perception, and avatars. What I'm about to share is actual working prototype technology, not mocked-up demos or concept art. Let's start by following up on Varifocal and the Halfdome prototype, last seen at F8 more than a year ago. The headset we shared at F8 was the result of several years of research and prototyping of advanced display systems. Halfdome was our first prototype to achieve 2 milestones. First, using Fresnel lenses, it supported a 140-degree field of view. Second, by physically moving the screens based on eye tracking, it changed the focal depth and kept the image sharp even when inspecting close objects. Today, I'm pleased to be able to share a new Varifocal concept prototype, Halfdome 2, built by our display systems research team working closely with several other teams across FRL. Unlike the original Halfdome, Halfdome 2 is targeted primarily at ergonomics and comfort, both visual and physical. The new prototype is substantially smaller and lighter than Halfdome, largely because our optics team has managed to fold the optical path into a very small volume. Overall, we've been able to improve form factor substantially and reduce weight by a full 200 grams over Halfdome. The trade-off for that increased comfort is that the field of view is narrower than Halfdome, although still 20% wider than Quest. The Varifocal hardware has also been considerably improved, so let's take a quick look at that. Varifocal now relies on voice coil actuators and flexure hinge arrays, eliminating any points of sliding or rolling contact between the moving screen and the pod assembly. This improves on the original Halfdome by reducing noise and vibration to imperceptible levels. All in all, Halfdome 2 continues the trajectory of Halfdome toward more immersive and comfortable VR displays. But there's more. As I said earlier, we're inventing as fast as we can, so I'm delighted to be able to share our first electronic Varifocal system, Halfdome 3. We've replaced all moving parts in Halfdome 2 with a thin stack of liquid crystal lenses. Let's take a look at a prototype module to understand how electronic Varifocal works. The next few images will be recorded through the electronic Varifocal module you see here. This is a real camera shot. Each liquid crystal lens can be turned on and off to alternate between 2 focal states. Here we indicate that a lens is on by highlighting it in orange. When the lens is turned off, the focus shifts to the far object. And then, when the lens turns back on, it shifts to the near object again. As you can see, a single liquid crystal lens makes a great pair of digital bifocals, shifting focus between 2 depths. To achieve smooth Varifocal, we address the full stack of liquid crystal lenses, with each additional pair doubling the number of focal planes. In this example, 6 liquid crystal lenses are driven to sweep through 64 focal planes, and you can see the focal depth smoothly changing at the right as we cycle through different sets of lens states. In addition to having no moving parts, this approach allows significantly better form factor compared to its predecessors. Here, we compare our new electronic module to the original Halfdome assembly and see that there's a considerable reduction in size. When we integrate the electronic module into a complete prototype headset, it defines a new state-of-the-art for VR ergonomics. This is still very much research today, but here's a view through an early Halfdome 3 prototype. As you can see, without Varifocal, the cassette gets blurry up close. But the electronic approach is able to replicate the smooth Varifocal experience of mechanical systems at all depths, a promising sign for the future. If you'd like to know more about our Varifocal work, we'll be putting up a deep dive blog post today. As important as visual quality is, a great display is just one key component of a compelling VR system. Computer vision, a part of what we call machine perception, is another essential element of the VR experience. For starters, the ability to localize the headset in the real world with great reliability and accuracy so that virtual objects are rock solid is what makes the virtual world seem real. That's not all, though. The ability to detect and reconstruct the real world and import parts of it as desired enables mixed reality. That is, mixing and matching of real and virtual in VR, so that you could, for example, bring a real keyboard, mouse, and desk into your virtual workspace and use them as easily as you would in the real world. Reconstruction also enables social teleportation, which lets you share your surroundings with another person or jump into someone else's part of the world, as we saw in Boz's talk. And of course, it's the foundation of live maps. Let's look at some of the recent progress from our Surreal team on reconstruction. I want to emphasize that what you're seeing is the real thing with no smoke and mirrors. This is a fly-through of reconstructions of real spaces generated by state-of-the-art reconstruction technology. I think this is absolutely amazing. If you can imagine stepping into one of those and just being in it, this phenomenal level of reconstruction will enable extraordinarily high-quality mixed reality experiences. Once you have a reconstruction, you can do whatever you want with it. Here are some pretty cool lighting effects in the reconstruction of Boz's dad's den. Rock-solid mixed reality is a key part of the future of VR, but there's still something missing, and that's people. We need to add truly convincing avatars to make VR ubiquitous because, as Yasser Sheikh from our Pittsburgh lab puts it, proximity determines social relationships, and social relationships make the world go round. Being together in person will always be the most satisfyingly human way to interact, but the technology we're developing has the potential to be the next best thing. Let's take a look at where we are with some of that. I'll start by picking up where we left off last year, with a Kodak Avatar head shown next to actual video of Steven speaking.
A good morrow to you, my boy. It's healthier to cook without sugar. Thank you, she said, dusting herself off.
That's amazingly realistic, but the level of expressiveness is pretty low, and expressiveness is perhaps the most critical part of social interaction. One of the important advances over the last year has been capturing more of that, as you can see in this next video. Here, Kevin's facial animation is being driven in real time entirely by cameras mounted in the headset. Of course, facial expressions only matter if you're interacting with someone. As you watch the next video, you can see Yasser and Danny wearing headsets in the real-world video in the corners. The faces in the center are avatars. And again, they're animated in real time entirely from cameras in the headset.
Well, what can your face do? Can you show us?
Well, I've always hoped you would ask me that question. So I have some pretty good, I think, mouth movement.
How about your eyes? Can you look left, right, up, down? Good.
Yeah, I can do surprise. Ah, ooh. I think one of my favorites is puffing my cheeks.
The mouthwash commercial.
And rolling my tongue.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Good.
Pretty hard to believe that those aren't videos, huh? Although, to be fair, right now, it doesn't always work that well. Anyway, it certainly doesn't take a huge leap to imagine how doing that in VR could be far more satisfying and personal than seeing someone's image on a flat screen. Social teleportation will need more than just heads, though, so I'd like to share an initial step toward Kodak Avatar bodies with you.
A Kodak Avatar is a digital representation of a person. And so we build these to look like us, move like us, sound like us, and the purpose of it is to be able to connect people across distances.
Again, this is just a first step. What you saw was generated offline, not in real time, although it will become real time in the not too distant future, but it's promising. All this is still research with a lot left to do, but Kodak Avatars have certainly come a long way. I think the 3 research areas we just looked at are pretty cool. But where this really gets exciting is when the pieces start coming together. If you put Kodak avatars together with reconstruction, you start to get true social teleportation, where anyone can be with anyone else, wherever they want, working with a mix of real and virtual. Let's take a very early peek at what that would be like. To set the stage, this is the stage in which Kodak Avatar data is captured initially. This is where we put people in, we capture the information, and now we've done a reconstruction of that space so that now we can put a Kodak Avatar in it.
We wish to spend time with and not be restricted only to those people who live close by. That's the promise of it. And this is research work that we've done right here in FRL Pittsburgh. I hope you enjoy the demo that you've seen, and we all look forward to what the future brings. Thank you.
Again, there's a long way to go, but this is a genuine glimpse of the future. It's going to take all the innovative technology we just saw and a lot more to make the leap to the next generation of VR. But there's more to it than that. There's an important lesson that we can learn from Xerox PARC here. The PARC researchers invented a wide range of revolutionary technologies, from the laser printer to the bitmap windowing interface to WYSIWYG word processing to object-oriented programming. If that was all they had done, they would have been wildly successful. But they also integrated all of that into the Alto, and that is what changed the world. Similarly, new VR technologies will need to be woven together into a complete, tightly integrated platform in order to make that quantum leap. It's the sum of the parts that will deliver that breakthrough experience, not technologies in isolation, as we started to see when we put the Kodak Avatar in a reconstructed environment. Which brings us to the question of exactly what that integrated next-generation platform will be. Rather than starting with technology, I'm going to approach that question from the perspective of what overall user experience we'd want the platform to deliver. And here, I'm going to return to a theme I've talked about before, my desire for a virtual collaborative workspace. For 5 years now, I've been wishing for a VR workspace that I could configure any way I wanted, with monitor-quality virtual screens, holograms, whiteboards, and whatever, saving and switching between configurations with a click. Throw in the ability to interact with my real surroundings and use a keyboard and mouse, and that would be a great work environment. And then, if I could share virtual spaces with other people, it would become an amazingly productive collaborative environment as well. And while I'm at it, it'd be great to have the ability to manipulate both real and virtual objects with my hands, complete with haptic feedback. I would use that in a heartbeat, and I believe that it would spread like wildfire, the way personal computers did back in the day. Even better, the hardware-software stacks and the overall platform needed to enable the full range of uses for that virtual collaborative workspace are so broad and general that they'd enable a vast space of applications and a flood of creativity across gaming, entertainment, communication, education, and productivity. Again, just like personal computers did. I am highly confident that a great virtual collaborative workspace would open the door to the entire next generation of VR, which in turn would unlock human potential on a massive scale. What would it take to make that collaborative workspace a reality? Well, without question, we'd need enough resolution and good enough image quality so that virtual monitors were at parity with real monitors. That would require very high-res displays and much improved optics. I personally think visual acuity needs to be 20/20 or better, but that's just the start. We'd also need the ability to render at that high resolution and to either do that with a mobile GPU or transmit the data over a wireless link. And that very likely means we would need foveated rendering, which may mean we need a new graphics pipeline and would certainly mean we need great eye tracking. Next, we would need excellent real-time mixed reality so that we could be aware of the world around us and move about and interact with our desk, chair, keyboard, mouse, and other surroundings. We would also want to have persistent, shareable virtual objects in the world so that we could, for example, set up a customized team workroom or work on tech art or some code with a teammate. To do that, we would need a localized version of the live maps technology that Boz talked about. That is, a private live map of our local physical surroundings. We would also need to be able to see our hands and our body in order to truly be present in the virtual world. And we'd want to do more than just look at our hands. We'd want to use them as the intuitive, highly dexterous manipulators that they are in the real world. So we'd want both haptic gloves and hands so accurate that we can interact with both the real and virtual worlds flawlessly in mixed reality. And if we're going to be doing work with our hands, we'd want clear and comfortable vision within arm's length for hours of use per day, exactly what Varifocal is designed to deliver. We'd also want proper spatialization and propagation of virtual sounds, so virtual objects and spaces would sound as real as they look. For collaborative work, we'd obviously want the compelling avatars we discussed earlier, and we'd need accurate real-time face, hand, eye, and body motion, as well as highly realistic appearance. Less obviously, we'd need a wider field of view so that everyone in a meeting could see everyone else. That's essential for social interaction, as are voices that sound like they're coming from the right people in the right places. We'd want to be able to share our real environments with each other, both for social purposes and because physical objects will often be important to the discussion. And we'd want to wrap all this up with great ergonomics to make it comfortable to be in VR for hours at a time. And that would require making everything I've discussed compact and power efficient. And then we'd finally have the complete platform that my dream workspace could be built on. Which I think we can all agree would be pretty awesome. But how do we get from here to there? Well, FRL has been pushing the envelope for the last 5 years on everything I just talked about. We've been focused on bootstrapping individual areas, like the hand tracking Mark talked about, which originated as FRL research, because that's what it took to get to next generation technology. Now that we've built many of the pieces, though, it's time to start putting the full platform together. To paraphrase Alan Kay, the best way to predict the next generation of VR is to build it. And FRL's mission is to build time machines that let us peer as far as possible into the future. So just as Xerox PARC built the Alto and showed the way to the future of the personal computer, FRL is going to build a true next-generation concept prototype with the objective of showing the way to the long-term future of VR. This prototype is going to be aimed squarely at collaborative virtual workspaces with the objective of enabling fully remote work that has all the benefits of working in an office, in addition to the pluses of both virtual and remote work. One reason we're making remote work the North Star is because it's a great way to connect people in VR, and connecting people is what Facebook is all about. Another reason is that making remote work really effective would have a hugely positive effect on how we live. Imagine what it would mean if you could work remotely as effectively as in person, or someday, maybe even more effectively, because you could have collaboration tools in the virtual world that could never exist in the real world. People wouldn't need to live near where they work. They could live near family, or where housing is affordable, or just wherever appeals to them. Commutes would vanish, and there would be dramatically fewer business trips with huge energy and environmental benefits. Companies would be able to tap into talent around the world, and the ability of talented people to find meaningful, high-paying work would no longer be determined by where they happen to have been born. That is truly a future that defies distance, and that by itself would be more than enough motivation. But there's yet another reason for building this prototype, and that's that a collaborative virtual workspace is something we in FRL would actually use. And when you're inventing something new, it's critical to know the customer well and have a rapid feedback cycle with them, and how better to do that than building something for yourself. So the key metric for our prototype will be whether we find we choose to use it for hours a day to do real work. If we find it that useful, so too will millions of other information workers, most likely including you. The long-term potential of next-generation VR is tremendously exciting, but I want to be really clear that this is still high-risk research. At best, it will take years to get to a prototype that proves out the concept. And Hofstadter was right. It always takes longer than you think, and that's especially true for turning research into something usable. So there's exciting potential for that quantum leap down the road, but for the foreseeable future, VR will be all about the Quest generation. Again, VR is happening now. So the virtual collaborative workspace is just a starting point, a catalyst. Like the personal computer, the next generation of VR will be a broad, general platform that enables a vast range of uses. Some of these will be improved versions of familiar things, but many of them haven't even been imagined yet. Whatever those applications are, I'm confident that the next generation platform will make VR a part of daily life for tens and then hundreds of millions of people, and will begin to change the way we work, the way we connect, the way we live. So VR is going to shape the world my grandson will live in, but it's going to be a decades-long journey to that promised land, and it will take all of us to get there. The next leg of that journey will be built on the work all of you true believers are doing, exploring the possibilities of VR and taking it into the mainstream while we work to move the underlying platform forward. And whenever it is that that next generation platform does finally see the light of day, you will be the ones poised to use it to change the world. And your faith in these early days will be rewarded at a scale that's hard to imagine today. Cosmic Crusader was a labor of love. It only sold a few thousand copies, so I certainly didn't do it for the money. But it was the start of a path that 15 years later led to co-writing a game that tens of millions of people would play, and that would be the template for a whole genre that's still going strong more than 20 years later. You too will have that sort of experience one day with VR. In the meantime, we're all going to have the adventure of a lifetime. It'll take a little more time than I thought to get to the next generation of VR, but that just means that these are going to be the good old days for longer. And these truly are the good old days. It just doesn't get any better than being there at the start and getting to create the future, and we are all unbelievably lucky to have the opportunity to do exactly that.